Okay, so the first thing with trig, we're going to talk about our reference angle. What is our reference angle? Okay, so there's three things that we're going to talk about with a reference angle. It is always positive. Okay? It's always acute. That's a math term. Do you know what the word acute means in math? Smaller than 90. Smaller than 90. I guess it could also be equal to 90, but it can't be bigger than 90. And it's always to the closest x-axis. Do you know which one is the x-axis? The flat or the up and down one? It's always to the flat axis, the horizontal one. Okay, when we are drawing angles, we start here. That's the starting point. Okay? And we travel in this direction. That's the normal. Okay, so it's not like a clock. You start on the right, okay, and then you work away like that. If you travel a full circle, do you know what a full circle makes up in how many degrees? 360 are in a whole circle. Okay, so if I start here, this is 0. And if I end here, it's 360. A full circle. So could you break that into sections for me? That's a full circle. What would you be at if you went to the top?
90.
This is 90. And then across at the side, the left is what? 180. What would the bottom be?
270.
270, and then 360. Okay, now when we graph, we always talk about quadrants. Okay, there's 4 quadrants in a graph. The quadrants are based off of these numbers. So this is quadrant 1, and then 2, 3, and 4. The quadrants follow the degrees. So as your degrees get bigger, your quadrants get bigger, okay? And that's a basic trig graphing situation, okay? All right. We're going to draw these angles. So if you were to rotate 108 degrees, so I'm going to put my pen here because this is where I start. I'm going to rotate 108 degrees. Can you think about where you would land? Okay, so in my mind, why did I draw it there? Because I thought, well, 108 is a little bit bigger than 90. So then I went up to 90 and then I went a little bit past. Okay, and I'm not like an exact amount. Okay, so that's drawing it. Did you also notice how I drew like this swivel arrow? So when you draw, there's a point. You get a point for the direction of your swivel, and you get a point for finding the correct spot kind of idea. What is the reference angle? So it said, what is the closest x-axis away. So I want to know the distance in this zone right here. Because how far am I away from an x-axis, the closest x-axis? Okay, so what could I do mathematically to figure that out? Does anybody have a good idea? 180 minus that angle. Because this whole distance is 180, subtract this, leaves me with that chunk. Okay, so that's a 72. Okay, number 2. This has a negative sign in it. This is going to be different. What do you think a negative angle will do? Any predictions? We can't be wrong if we're predicting here. It's going to swivel in the wrong direction. So I'm going to be going in this direction. That's a negative, right? Because before we talked about this is the normal. You start and you go that way. So negative is going that way. Okay, so can you think about where you would go if you went 125 degrees in a backwards direction on here? Something like that. Okay, now we got to see what is the reference angle. So I want to know how far away right now am I from the closest x-axis. And this answer has to be positive, right? So in my math, I'm actually not even going to worry about anything with negatives. Okay, the negative was in the drawing, but math-wise, I'm not going to use negatives in my math. So if you haven't thought of a strategy here, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing 180 subtract 125 to see what's left in that spot. Okay? So there's 55 degrees of a distance in there. Positive, less than 90, and to the closest x-axis. Okay, 400 degrees. Whoa, what is going on here? There's something crazy, I think. What is in my full circle? 360. So now what? This is more. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to subtract 360. Does anybody know in your mental math there what would be left? 40. Okay, so I have to go an entire circle, then 40 more. So this is what it's going to look like. I went all around and then 40 more. Okay, does that make sense? Do you see my swivel all the way and then 40? Okay, there's the drawing. What's the reference? So here's the closest x-axis. How much are you away from it? 40. Okay, 226. Okay, normal direction, so 90, 180. Okay, I can't go to the bottom one because that's 270, so that's already too big. So I'm in this quadrant, right? I'm in quadrant 3. 180, 270. Okay, so this is the piece I want to know. The reference is from there to there. I just want to know that little distance. So using my numbers, what will I want to do here? So if I take that whole distance and subtract 180, it will leave me with what is left, okay? You see it? The full distance, take away the 180, will leave me with that chunk. Okay, so this is what drawing angles are and reference angles.